In this episode, and for the next several episodes, I'll be working my way through Mastering Professional Scrum and discussing how we can apply the contents of this book to our Power Platform and Dynamics 365 teams. I'll share my thoughts about the book's content and my own experiences and stories from my Microsoft Business Apps teams. I'm using the book to prepare for my Professional Scrum Master Level 3 certification exam. I'm using this podcast as a way of learning in public and hope that you find it useful whether you're considering and studying for PSM1, PSM2, or perhaps studying along with me for PSM3 as well. G'day and welcome to Amazing Apps. I'm your host and Microsoft MVP, Neil Benson. Mastering Professional Scrum was written by two professional Scrum trainers, Stephanie Ockerman and Simon Reindl, and published in 2019 by Addison Wesley. Stephanie Ockerman is the founder of Agile Socks, an agile training and coaching business. She has more than 15 years' experience as a Scrum Master, trainer, coach, and change agent. Her blog is at agilesocks.com. Simon Reindl was the first professional Scrum trainer in the UK. He has more than 25 years' experience developing products in a range of roles and industries worldwide. He is a director at Advanced Product Delivery and a board member at the Lean Agile Procurement Alliance. You'll find links to the book, to Stephanie and Simon's LinkedIn profiles, and all the other resources I mentioned in the episode description. Make sure you check it out. The reason I want to focus on Stephanie and Simon's book is because it's one of the most comprehensive resources available for practicing Scrum team members. Mastering Professional Scrum is aimed at people already aware of Scrum and who have a working knowledge of it and, importantly, want to improve their practice of it. If you want to learn the basics and benefits of Scrum, then I recommend my free mini course, Agile Foundations of Microsoft Business Apps, before diving back into this series of episodes. It's unfortunate that Mastering Professional Scrum was published just before the 2020 edition of the Scrum Guide was published. The latest changes to the Scrum Guide aren't reflected in the book, so I'll point these out as we go along. I'm going to try my best to avoid reproducing sections of the book. That's not my purpose here. I encourage you to go out and buy it in your local bookstore, from Pearson's Inform IT site, or your preferred online bookseller. Unfortunately, Mastering Professional Scrum isn't available as an audiobook, which I love audiobooks, so I'm using an ebook version that I bought a couple of years ago. In this episode, we're going to focus on Chapter 1, Continuously Improving Your Scrum Practice. I'll publish the rest of the episodes in sequence, one episode per chapter. But you don't need to follow the book or my episodes sequentially. They're designed to be used like a virtual Scrum coach, with each chapter addressing a challenge that a Scrum team might face. You're welcome to dive into the chapters in any order, or come back to a chapter later if you need help with that chapter's topic sometime in the future. That's the preamble out of the way. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Continuously Improving Your Scrum Practice. The chapter starts with a reminder of the definition of Scrum, a lightweight framework that helps teams create valuable, releasable products frequently. That definition in the book is slightly different to the definition in the Scrum Guide. Scrum is a lightweight framework that helps people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. The 2020 Scrum Guide's definition of Scrum doesn't mention releasing products frequently. This is a slight change in the definition from the 2017 version that was reflected in the book. As time has progressed, Scrum has evolved from an approach used exclusively by software developers to a framework used by all sorts of product development teams in all sorts of industries. Why do we need to consider continual improvement anyway? Once we master Scrum, isn't that it? Aren't we done? Well, the customers that we work with change. If you work for a Microsoft partner, you can certainly expect to work with lots of different customers over the course of your career. Even if you just work for one customer, that organization and its people will change over time. Of course, the members of your Scrum team will change too, despite our best efforts to retain a stable, high-performing team. Technologies are constantly changing, not just the names of the Microsoft products we're implementing, but their features and capabilities and the tools we use to implement them with. Lots of my projects have incorporated spikes to evaluate new preview features available in a release wave and that they plan to adopt in a future sprint. Often, we had no idea that feature would be available when we initiated the project. Laws, regulations, and competitive environments change too. My team at Superware AI built a complaints management app in response to the Australian regulator's introduction of Regulatory Guide 271 for internal dispute resolution, which lays out a framework for resolving complaints that financial services organisations in Australia must meet. Those kinds of regulatory changes impose a change, whether you consider that change a burden or an opportunity. These changes challenge us to strive for continual improvement. To help us focus our improvement, the authors suggest 7 key improvements: agile mindset, empiricism, teamwork, team process, identity, product value, and organisation. We'll spend the remainder of this episode discussing how Power Platform and Dynamics 365 teams can embrace these 7 key areas of improvement. Agile mindset. Let's start there. Like a growth mindset, an agile mindset embraces the changes that affect our team. Agile mindsets might even seek out additional opportunities for change and not just wait for external forces to cause a change response. Agile mindsets embrace the Scrum values: courage, focus, commitment, openness, and respect. The lean principles of defining value, mapping the value stream, creating flow, establishing pool, and pursuing perfection. The values and principles from the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. Its values are individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. And the Agile Manifesto's principles are early and continuous delivery of valuable software, welcome changing requirements, deliver working software frequently, business people and developers working together daily, build projects around motivated individuals. Face-to-face communication is the most effective and efficient method of conveying information. Working software is the primary measure of progress. Maintain a sustainable pace indefinitely. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design embraces agility. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the work not done, is essential. The best products emerge from self-organizing teams, and at regular intervals reflect how to become more effective. How many of those do you remember off by heart? I've tried my best to summarize those agile principles, but there's a lot of nuance in the original that I encourage you to go and read and re-familiarize yourself with. I still think there are some concepts missing from the Agile Manifesto, though. Principles such as the value of diversity in our teams, setting goals, and validating the quality of our work don't appear. Unlike the Scrum Guide, the Agile Manifesto has never been refreshed or updated, and its original form from 2001 still stands. But that aside, how well does your team embrace an agile mindset? One way you can tell is by measuring the number of improvement actions that result from your sprint retrospectives and that get implemented in future sprints. How often is a change suggested by a team member, ratified by the team, and actually implemented? The best teams I've worked with have kept a tally of those improvements. Nothing fancy, just a small list in a wiki page. But it's a great way to reflect on whether the team is still refining the way it works. If you can't think of any improvements your team has made recently, then I suggest reflecting on whether your team members have an agile mindset. Perhaps you need to invite another Scrum Master to facilitate a retrospective session, focusing on the Scrum values, those lean values, and the Agile Manifesto values and principles to see if you can imagine some improvements to your way of working. Empiricism. Empiricism is our second key improvement area. It's at the heart of Scrum. It's the idea that we can't figure out how to build complex enterprise applications just by sitting down and designing them in a specification. Instead, we need to come up with ideas and run experiments to discover what works in practice for our stakeholders. Scrum embraces empiricism through its 3 pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency means that the team and its stakeholders have a full understanding of what's going on because all aspects of the product and the process are visible. They know what's already been built, what's likely to be built next, how the product is getting built, and how much progress we've made. Inspection means that the Scrum team has regular opportunities to pose hypotheses, run experiments, and review the results with the team and its stakeholders. Adaptation means that the Scrum team also has regular opportunities to use what it learns through inspection and apply that knowledge to change its goals, change its plans, and to change its way of working. How does Scrum support empiricism in practice? The sprint event is a time box within which Scrum teams run their experiments. Sprint planning is the event during which we plan and commit to running a couple of experiments during the sprint. The sprint review event is the opportunity to review what we learned with our stakeholders and then adapt our plans by updating the backlog. By creating increments every sprint and reviewing them with our stakeholders, we're also being transparent about what we've built and our progress toward our goals. And we should also be transparent about what didn't work or where we got stuck and didn't make as much progress as planned. If you want to learn how to apply empiricism to your work, you can check out The Power of Learning Through Experiments in Power Apps Development. Here's an example of how my teams use empiricism rather than upfront design. My team was recently asked to build some portal features for external users of a Dynamics 365 customer service app that's being used primarily for case management. We're building on the existing Power Apps portal created by another team in an earlier project. We want to use Power Pages with its streamlined ALM benefits with the enhanced data model, rather than the kind of fiddly release management approach required with a Power Apps portal site. So we were faced with several design-related questions. Can we use a Power Pages site and embed its pages within Power Apps portal site? Can we have visitors authenticate through Power Apps portal and then securely redirect them to a new Power Pages site? Or should we just extend the Power Apps portal site while waiting for the IT team who now own the site to upgrade it to Power Pages with the enhanced data model? Our preference, of course, is to run some experiments and review the results, and then adopt. Review the results, then adapt our plans. So we did. We demonstrated a proof of concept with Power Pages embedded within a Power Apps portal site, but it was kind of clunky. We redirected authenticated visitors from the Power Apps portal site over to the Power Pages site, but the user experience wasn't great. And we evaluated the new tool to convert Power Apps portal sites built on the standard data model to the enhanced data model, and we decided to extend the Power Apps portal site and update it to a Power Pages site with the enhanced data model once the tool reaches general availability. Any day now. Teamwork. High-performing business apps teams are cross-functional, self-organizing, and collaborative. Cross-functional. A cross-functional team has all the skills needed to accomplish the goal of turning backlog items into released increments. If your team is missing a key skill, it will be dependent upon someone outside the team. And this increases the risk of getting blocked if that person outside isn't available. Sometimes the skills are technical. You need to add a Power BI developer to the team for a couple of sprints to help establish the reporting framework and show the team how to build their first few dashboards. All Scrum teams will have to work with stakeholders, some of whom are also critical to the team achieving its goals. It could be the availability of the product owner to refine the backlog with the team, or to have the team's designs approved by an architecture review board, and they only meet once a month. Or it could be the capacity of users to perform acceptance testing. All of these challenges have affected my Power Platform and Dynamics 365 teams, and they all require the team to find solutions. Teams with the fewest external dependencies go the fastest. Self-managing. In Mastering Professional Scrum, they refer to self-organizing. That phrase was updated to self-managing in the 2020 Scrum Guide. Personally, I preferred self-organizing, but I didn't get to decide on the changes to the Scrum Guide. I found that there are two aspects to self-managing teams. The first is that they don't have an external manager. A line manager outside the team. The team members all have a manager, but that person isn't joining sprint planning to assign items to developers or expecting a velocity report for each developer in the sprint review. Oh, can you imagine? The second is that the team doesn't have an internal manager either. If your developers look to a senior developer to provide instructions, or the Scrum Master to tell them what to do, then that's a sign the team is not self-managing yet. A self-managing team should feel accountable and responsible for the work and be trusted by their managers to figure out how to do the work and to get it done without an internal or external manager telling them what to do and how to do it. Fulfilling this possibility of self-managing teams is one of the reasons why I and thousands of other business apps builders, hopefully you, find Scrum so fulfilling compared to a sequential process run by a project micromanager. In mastering Professional Scrum, they also add collaborative and stable as characteristics of an effective Scrum team. I agree, and although these concepts aren't directly addressed in the Scrum Guide, perhaps they should be. Collaborative. My teams practice collaboration with events like whole team backlog refinement and estimation, Mis Amigos meetings, or we used to call them Three Amigos, now they're Mis Amigos, where developers who will be working together on a backlog item huddle and form a plan about who's going to do what and by when during the sprint. And pair programming, with 2 or more developers working together simultaneously on a backlog item, which is great for onboarding or upskilling new developers. Stable. Stable teams are important too. I've seen Microsoft partners struggle to achieve stable Scrum teams. Assigning a consultant to a Scrum team for many months or even years can be a radical departure from their traditional resourcing model where people roll in and roll out of a project every week. Without stability, a Scrum team never really forms and certainly never achieves that kind of high performance. That doesn't mean that the team composition is stuck forever. It's just that changes are made infrequently and deliberately. Team process. Our Scrum teams get to define their own ways of working within the boundaries and constraints recommended in the Scrum Guide. This is one of the aspects of Scrum that I love the most. Take 2 Scrum teams, each delivering similar apps. Let's say Dynamics 365 Field Service. How each team fulfills the roles of Scrum, creates the artifacts, and conducts its events could be wildly different from the other. How each team decides to build its increments, to verify their quality, and release them is also left up to the teams. They're both practicing Scrum, but they can each adopt different patterns and practices that suit their organization and their goals. The different types of patterns and practices that teams need to consider include how they develop software, validate quality, manage the product long-term roadmap, manage the product backlog, run Scrum events, create Scrum artifacts, communicate and collaborate, identify and reduce waste and unblock impediments, and continuously improve and grow. There are hundreds of known patterns and practices used by Scrum teams all over the world. I share dozens of my proven practices that my teams have used in my Successful Scrum from Microsoft Business Apps course and on my website at customary.com. Practices continually evolve, new ideas emerge, conditions change and force us to periodically inspect and adapt how we work. Your team might even find itself inventing new ways of working to meet the unique situation they're facing. That's why sprint retrospectives are so important. I'm sure Ockerman and Reindl will cover team processes in more detail later in other sections of the book. So let's move on to the next focus of our key improvements. Team identity. Does your team have a strong team identity? I'm not sure that all of my teams have had a clearly defined identity, beyond perhaps having a cool team name. Ockerman and Reindl challenge us to answer 3 big questions to establish our team's identity. Number 1, why do we exist? That is, what is our purpose? Number 2, what is important to us? That is, what are our values? And 3, what do we want? That is, what is our vision? Lucinda Edmonds, our product owner at the Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads, had vision boards around the office with illustrations describing the purpose of her program and her teams, their shared values and vision. This is probably the closest I've seen a team come to answering these 3 big questions, but I've worked with other teams with some sense of identity that didn't go to these lengths either. Team identity doesn't get a lot of coverage in this section of the book, but we do return to it in the next chapter, which I'll cover in the next episode. And team identity doesn't get a mention at all in the Scrum Guide. My experience shows that it can be helpful to invest in building a team identity, but it's not always critical to the team's performance or the product achieving its desired outcomes. I guess I'll find out more in the next episode when I review Chapter 2, Creating a Strong Team Foundation. Product value. Like creating a team identity, the idea of creating a valuable product gets its own chapter in the book. Chapter 4, Improving Value Delivered. The authors only include a few lines in this section to remind us that our teams should focus on continually improving the value of the product we're delivering. Organization. We're going to return to the organization in Chapter 7, Leveraging the Organization to Improve. In a short section within Chapter 1, the authors remind us that the potential success of our Scrum team is heavily influenced by the organization's structure and its culture. Its structure is the strategy, the operating model, the products and services, and the arrangement of businesses into divisions and business units. Its culture relates to the expected and accepted behaviors within the organization. I've got a lot to learn in this area, and I'm looking forward to diving into Chapter 7 later. My experience has been working in or leading a Scrum team as a Microsoft partner engaged to deliver a product, a business application, for a Microsoft customer. My teams work within our customers' organizations, but we don't really have a mandate to evolve the customer's structure or culture to maximize the benefits of Scrum. At best, perhaps, we uncover some organizational constraints and we make those transparent to our stakeholders. Let's get into all of that when we cover Chapter 7. In the rest of Chapter 1, the authors cover 5 additional capabilities that Scrum teams need to keep improving and a process for continuous improvement. The 5 capabilities Scrum teams need for continuous improvement are teaching skills, facilitation skills, coaching skills, technical excellence, and servant leadership. Let's go through them one at a time. Teaching skills. Teaching is the transfer of your skills and knowledge to other team members. This could mean a Scrum Master introducing the team to practices that help the developers become more effective with Scrum. It could be the product owner helping the team understand the business processes that the new business application needs to support. Or it could be a developer explaining the team's LM processes to a new developer who's recently joined the team. The authors reckon that teaching is a skill. Not everyone is born with it, but it's something we can develop and grow. Think about your current team. Are there individuals in the team who you think of as good teachers? People you can rely on to buddy a new hire, or can explain complex concepts to others. I do, and I agree that it's a skill that everyone in our Scrum teams should develop. Facilitation skills. It's not just Scrum Masters who benefit from their facilitation skills. We often think it's up to the Scrum Master to facilitate Scrum events, although not always. In great Scrum teams, product owners facilitate product backlog refinement sessions, and developers facilitate peer review sessions and the daily Scrum. Good facilitators have a neutral point of view and help the group stay focused on the purpose of the event. They create an environment which everyone feels comfortable and welcome to contribute, and they ensure the group has clarity on the outcomes or the decisions made during the event. Coaching skills. I didn't really find that the authors explained the difference between coaching and teaching in this session. When I'm being taught and when I'm being coached, I'm learning new information, enhancing my understanding and gaining new skills and confidence. To me, coaching is more personal, often one-on-one, whereas teaching is often to a group. Coaching uses inquiry, if you prefer, and a thought-provoking approach, whereas teaching uses explanation to impart new information. And to be coached, the subject needs foundational knowledge, while teaching can provide knowledge to someone brand new to the topic. In the same way we can develop our teaching capabilities, I agree that we can and that we should develop a coaching capability within our Scrum teams too. Technical excellence. One of the principles of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development is continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Here, Ockerman and Reindl are referring to technical excellence not just in the sense of evaluating and delivering appropriate technical solutions, but technical excellence in the way that everyone performs their role. Excellence in requirements analysis, from developers performing business analysis. Excellence in Power Platform component development, from developers performing application development. excellence in product management techniques from the product owner, excellence in test automation and execution from developers performing quality analysis. Great Scrum teams are constantly improving their technical skills. My teams do this through formal and informal training. We're taking Danny Cahill's new Mastering Requirements course at the moment. We aim to take or update a Microsoft certification a couple of times a year, and we hold sessions reviewing the latest release plans and blogs, attending user group meetings and conferences, and by listening to podcasts. And no idea if my team listens to this one. Servant leadership. The Scrum Master serves the developers, the product owner, and the organization. Great Scrum Masters guide rather than direct those they're working with. That's a fine line that Ockerman and Reindl describe, and they provide a few examples in this section of the chapter. Servant leadership was a characteristic of Scrum Masters in previous editions of the Scrum Guide. Mastering Professional Scrum was published just beforehand, so it's no surprise it gets a mention in the book, but this characteristic isn't covered in the Scrum Guide anymore. I think it's still relevant and something you should learn more about if you want to become a great Scrum Master. I'm just not sure it's a capability Scrum teams need to have outside of the Scrum Master. What do you think? Those are the 5 capabilities that Scrum teams need to have for continuous improvement. Let's look at Ockerman and Reindl's recommended continuous improvement process. A process for continuous improvement. The authors provide a self-assessment questionnaire in the appendix and invite you as a team to rate your team on a scale of 1 to 10 against various statements, such as, we have a single product owner who is empowered to make decisions and maximize the value of the product. There are just over 100 questions in 3 categories: business agility, effective empiricism, and effective teamwork. I wish the authors had developed a survey tool that we could take online rather than listing them in the appendix, but it's still a useful set of introspective questions. They recommend taking the questionnaire as a team and then looking at the results and asking yourselves 3 questions. Where does it hurt the most? Why? And what are small experiments we can run to change things? Where hurts most? This is about prioritization. We can't improve or fix everything at once. Instead, we incrementally make changes and adjust as we learn more. That's empiricism, after all. We start with the issues that are having the biggest detrimental impact on our team. That is, the topics with the lowest scores in the questionnaire. Now, I'd argue that not all of the 100-something questions in the survey have the same importance, but I think you can make your own judgment. You get the point. Root cause analysis. Root cause analysis invites us to ask why something hurts. Ockerman and Reindl provide an example of how we can use the 5 whys technique to get to the bottom of a problem by iteratively asking why. Issue. Our releases are often delayed, which frustrates our stakeholders. Why are releases often delayed? Because we didn't get all of our increments done, and lots of items get carried over to the next sprint. Why aren't items getting done? Because backlog items are always more complex than we thought, and we didn't discover the complexity until towards the end of the sprint. Why is the complexity not known before sprint planning? Because not everyone attends the backlog refinement sessions. Why are some people absent from backlog refinement? Developers only usually attend if they're given a specific reason to attend, and sometimes the product owner can't make it either. In this example, using the 5 whys technique, we've been able to get to a potential root cause and form a hypothesis about why releases are often delayed because of our deficient backlog refinement sessions. Experiment with different approaches. Now that we have a hypothesis about the root cause of an issue affecting our team's work, we can run experiments to find a solution. In the next sprint, we take an action that we anticipate will address the problem and examine the results at the end of the sprint. In our late delivery example, we might publish an agenda that includes the list of items we're going to cover in the backlog refinement session. We ensure it's scheduled at a time that everyone can make it. Or we could run multiple short refinement sessions instead of one longer one. Those are 3 different experiments that we could run to address your team's delayed release issue. So, summary. Here's what I learned from Chapter 1 of Mastering Professional Scrum. There are 7 key improvement areas that Scrum teams can focus on: an agile mindset, empiricism, teamwork, team process, team identity, product value, and organization. There are also 5 capabilities that Scrum teams should develop to continuously improve: teaching, facilitation, coaching, servant leadership, and technical excellence. And lastly, they offered us a process for continual improvement by asking ourselves where we need to improve the most. Then, using techniques like 5 whys, we can form hypotheses about the root causes of the issues holding us back. And then we can run experiments by taking actions and reviewing the results to determine whether we have actually improved. Here's my call to action. Grab a copy of Mastering Professional Scrum, use the questionnaire in Appendix A with your team, and inspect what's hurting your team the most. Then run an experiment to improve it in your next sprint. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this Amazing Apps episode and found it useful. And if you want to join me for the rest of this Mastering Professional Scrum series, make sure you subscribe to Amazing Apps on YouTube or in your favorite podcast player. Until next time, keep experimenting.